On to something. This interview is so cool. I just really want you to hear it. Ethan Van Sciver, he's a comic book artist. He worked for DC Comics, Marvel Comics. He's illustrated Green Lantern, The Flash, and some Batman. He talked to me about what happened when he was exposed, I guess you could say. He'd always been very open about it, but after Trump was elected, things changed. He has created his own comic. Its latest iteration, Cyber Frog, Blood Honey, has raised over $500,000 through crowdfunding. Here is Ethan Van Sciver. Ethan Van Sciver, thank you so much for coming on.
It's my pleasure. It's great to be here, Andrew. Big fan.
Oh, thanks. I want to hear you worked for DC Comics, right, for like 20 years. So I want to hear how you got into this and how that part of it went before we get into the whole SJW thing.
Well, I've worked for DC Comics since 1997. I started out drawing a book called Impulse, worked my way up to The Flash, Green Lantern. We basically revolutionized the whole Green Lantern concept, me and Jeff Johns, who's now their chief creative officer. And then Flash Rebirth, we brought back Barry Allen. So most of the stuff that you see on the TV show right now comes from, work that I've done with Jeff Johns, the writer. And then I met Greg Hurwitz. We worked on Batman together, did Man Bat and a fantastic Mad Hatter arc. It was just great. I mean, it was fantastic. Everything was good. And then November 9th, 2016.
Okay.
Changed absolutely everything.
On the way, did people know you were a conservative? Were you open about your...
Everybody knew I was a Republican, but as long as I was in the political minority, it wasn't a big deal. But as soon as we gained power, as soon as Republicans gained power, they started to get very, very upset.
Had it ever come up in, like, professionally? Had anybody ever said to you, "Oh, take out that panel, take out that storyline," anything like that?
Not in terms of me being a Republican, but I did see, because I never put political content in any of my books.
Sure.
I started to notice PC creeping into comics way back in 2003 when I was working at Marvel Comics for a short stint. I had to draw the sequence of Wolverine on a motorcycle in the rain. Now, the Scottish writer, a guy named Grant Morrison, so cool. He described this scene for me of Wolverine sitting on his motorcycle. There's an ambulance full of mutant killing, cultists in an ambulance. They're about to hurt a teenage girl, and Wolverine's parked out in his motorcycle in the rain. And what does he do before he goes in there and kills them all? He lights a cigarette. Okay. Now I was like, that feels great. Like, that's a great scene. So I drew it just as it was described. And then I got a notification from editorial, and I mean high up, the EIC, the president of Marvel Comics, redraw that panel. Wolverine doesn't smoke anymore. And I was like, since when? He's always smoked. That's the whole thing about him, is he's got a stogie and a cowboy hat, and that's Wolverine. We don't want to set a bad example for children. Smoking is bad. Wow. I'm like, okay. He's about to go in and murder 6 people. I mean, do you want me to take that out as well? Can I take out the murder scene, or is it just the cigarettes that we oppose? No, I did have to redraw that scene so that Wolverine is just sitting there on his motorcycle in the rain. It looks like the cover to Prince's Purple Rain, actually. It doesn't quite have the impact that the original had. For cool fact.
Right.
So that's when I started to notice PC kind of creeping into comics. And it got worse and worse. And right around 2014 is when it became full-blown SJW invasion.
So what did that look like?
That looked like, hey, we need more women in comics. The reason why the comics are declining in sales, perhaps, is because we could double our audience if we only had more female characters. So instead of creating new ones, let's kill Thor. Let's kill Thor and replace him with a woman, or let's Wolverine can go away. Let's replace him with a woman. Tony Stark, white male. Let's kill him and replace him with a teenage black girl.
Wow.
Still call the book Iron Man. The Incredible Hulk, Bruce Banner. That's boring. Let's replace him with an Asian kid who's super smart and happy to be the Hulk. They took all of the pathos away from the Hulk. Now, fans began to complain. Not because of the inclusion of more women and people of color. LGBT characters started to show up, not because of that, but because they were replacing characters like Bruce Banner and Tony Stark and Thor. I mean, these are characters that you see in the movies, Wolverine. And then you go to the comic shops and they're not there. Instead, you've got these replacement characters that aren't half as interesting because SJWs cannot create characters. I don't know what it is. They just step in and ruin other people's characters.
I think that may be part of the point, though, isn't it? I mean, it's not just that they want to succeed; they want you to fail. That's the important point.
Yeah, I think so. The more I think about SJWs in comics or in any pop culture medium, and I'm a big Star Wars fan too. I do a YouTube show about Star Wars, criticizing pop culture and the culture war within Star Wars. It's called Comic Artist Pro Secrets. That's my YouTube channel. And they do the same thing there. I don't think it's that they, I think what it really is they just want to control, they want to infiltrate and control, a megaphone, a pop culture megaphone that is beloved, and then just ruin it.
Okay, so the culture is changing in the comic industry. Suddenly Donald Trump wins the election. Now what happens?
Now suddenly everybody's hitting my Twitter account, calling me a Nazi and calling me a scumbag and calling me terrible names. And somebody digs back into my past. I had a sketchbook in 2007 where I had a character that I redesigned, a villain I redesigned to look like Hitler, the Green Lantern's main villain. I gave him a haircut, like a fashy kind of haircut. I gave him an armband, and I made him look more kind of imperious and like with heavier bags under his eyes. And he became a major hit character. I mean, he was DC's #1 character because he just had so much weight. And I said openly, I'm running him through this kind of Nazi filter to just kind of fix this goofy character and make him worthy of Hal Jordan. Well, I put out a sketchbook with him on the cover, which was just basically a pamphlet of my drawings that you could buy at a convention. And I called it My Struggle. Okay, because he was on the cover.
Yeah.
And basically I thought it was it was a three-way joke. I mean, the first thing obviously was the character was kind of Hitlerian, but also the artwork contained my struggle from 1993 to present day to become a comic book artist. And then the third thing was kind of the wink and the nod was, you guys know I'm a Republican and you keep calling me a Nazi. And that's,
But he was the villain. The Hitler guy was the villain.
Of course he was.
Of course,
I mean, he was a major villain. He was a dictator. He was Hitler from space. I mean, it made our heroes more heroic by opposing him. So they dug this out and said, some bright genius, some bright little soy boy ran My Struggle through a German translation, Google something or other. And it came back Mein Kampf, and they had a full-scale panic attack, a full-scale outrage attack. Oh my gosh, he's been signaling that he's a Nazi this whole time. And I was just kind of like, I thought everyone knew that, but no. I thought everyone knew that My Struggle was like Mein Kampf. I thought no, this was alarming to people. And they even had a meme where it was like, My Struggle, like the meme, My Struggle, German translation, Mein Kampf, dun, 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 like reveal, Nazi reveal. So this was 10 years old at this point, and they started running articles about me. Now, these people, the way that they work is they have like a bunch of journalists that work for them, a bunch of friends in the media, and they started writing article after article about, me being a far right wing, alt-right, a Nazi, all of these things. And a certain portion of the audience believed that.
Did anybody, any of these people interview you or talk to you about it?
No, of course not, because they knew it wasn't true. Right. I mean, it was just a way to get me kind of excommunicated and exiled from comics. So we went through a hell of a time, me and my wife. I mean, they really did make it tough. We didn't know how to deal with SJWs. We didn't understand that, this is all disingenuous. None of it's real. Never apologized to them for anything. All of this stuff. We were just kind of enduring a hellstorm. And I was talking to DC Comics PR the whole time and just kind of saying, what do I do? What do I do? These people are calling me names and people believe it. And they're going to think I'm actually, legitimately a white supremacist or something. And this is terrifying. That means if you're a white supremacist, that means that you can't go out of your house without getting punched or assaulted. What do you do to Nazis? You shoot them. I mean, that's really an awful thing to do to somebody. It's a terrible thing to do.
That's amazing. So what happened? How did all this turn out? I mean, did you have to leave DC, or did you leave on your own
I
suit?
did. I left DC shortly after what is now known in comics lore and Comicsgate lore as the Gotham City Pizza incident, wherein I decided to make an appearance at this place in Florida called Gotham City Pizza. I was going to draw. We're going to have some beers. Private event for the fans, to come out and meet me. It was really wonderful. This was in November of last year, and I received a bunch of death threats. Like, do not go to Gotham City Pizza. If you do, we are going to kill you. We're going to rape your wife, and all this. Don't go, Nazi scum, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I showed these tweets to everybody. I was just like, I don't hide death threats. When they come, I show them to people. So I went anyway. After consideration, I left my wife at home, but I went to the event, had a great time. I had a bunch of Navy SEALs and Marines that were like, nobody's going to touch you. Nobody's going to mess with you. We're going to have a good time. I drew Batman on the wall. It was awesome. Thought it went great. But the next morning, somebody had kicked in all of their windows and smashed their doors. That was a shame. We rallied the community. We were able to raise money to actually replace this guy's door. But from then on, it was just kind of like, all right, this is serious. Like, I really can't go anywhere. I can't go and appear somewhere because these guys have so rallied up crazy people against me that it's unsafe. Eventually, I talked to DC Comics about this. They didn't know what to do. They kept saying things like, remove your social media. I mean, maybe disappear. And I kind of said, well, my social media is my sword and my shield. I can't just disappear. And I don't think that they're going to stop ever. So I said, I'm going to leave. At the end of my contract, I asked how many more issues I owed them. I owed them 5. I quit after 4. They let me out. And it was like free falling. I'd been there for 20 years.
Yeah.
I'd been there for 20 years. And I'd been chased out by people, maniacs, crazy people who were lying about me. And this was all over comic books. I just want to underscore this. This is about comic books. You know what I mean? It's like, and I the whole time this is happening, I'm like, this is an incredibly high price to pay for the privilege of having worked in comic books. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In a dying industry. So
that's an amazing.
And it is a dying.
So what are you doing now? What are you doing instead?
Well, I kind of got my act together and just said, they started to call this rebellion, this uprising of it's a consumer revolt against far left wingers ruining the comic book industry. And they are. Comics are down 10% last year in sales. This year, down 6.5%. I mean, comic sales are in free fall. Stores are closing left and right. Now, if comic stores close, there's nowhere to go. Marvel and DC have an exclusive distributing agreement with Diamond Distributing. They're only located in these brick and mortar comic shops. The last of the newsstands died in August of 2017. There's no more newsstand, picking up a comic book at the newsstand. So as these brick and mortar local comic shop retailers go out of business, 50 of them last year, I don't know how many this year, but a friend of mine who is a publisher had a list of 100 comic shops. There are 2,000 or so in the United States. 100 comic shops that he was calling up. And as he was calling these comic shops to invite them to purchase his books, he realized 15 of them had gone out of business this year. 15 out of the 100. This is terrifying. I mean, this is absolutely terrifying. And in the meantime, while this is all happening, we've got SJWs accusing right-wingers of being abusive, of being hateful, of being Nazis in comics. If you do not like what they're doing, if you do not like the fact that women are no longer allowed to look sexy in comics, they're just not allowed to look sexy anymore. And I know that for a fact because, I've been told, I drew a woman with her top zipped down one time, a superhero, and I was told to zip that up by editorial. I mean, it used to be that comics were about kind of sexy women, handsome, tough men fighting monsters, smoking cigarettes, doing stuff that your mom didn't approve of. Right. You were supposed to read them under the blankets at night. You were supposed to hide the fact that you liked comic books. Now they've become so PC that nobody's buying them. Mm-hmm. They become PC and they become vehicles for far left-wing propaganda.
So
now,
yes.
So this is what I'm on a tirade now. So this is what Comicsgate is. Comicsgate is me and a bunch of other comic book creators who have abandoned the mainstream. And we've stood up and said, we're going to do this on our own. We're going to defy you guys. We don't need you. We don't need your comic shops. All we need is our group of fans, All we need is the market out there, the audience that would buy these comic books if they weren't so repellent. And we can market them through our social media. We can market them by going on YouTube. We can market them by going on Twitter. We can use crowdfunding, and then we can distribute them by hand. I mean, virtually by hand. We can mail these things. We can use fulfillment services and skip over all of the harassment that these SJWs do, because they do. They actually call comic shops and say, if you stock these right-wing comics, we're going to harass you. We're going to tell other people not to support you.
So I'm running out of time. Tell people where they can get your stuff now.
All right, listen. Crowdfunded a book called Cyberfrog Blood Honey. We raised $538,000.
Wow.
In 2 months. Yeah. Alarm bells are going off everywhere. This is a big deal. Comicsgate is the future of comics. You can go to Indiegogo and find Cyberfrog Blood Honey, and you can find many other awesome Comicsgate books as well. Support these comics. Comic books are important. It is American as jazz. It is an American art form, uniquely American, and we can't allow it to die.
Absolutely great story. I wish you success. I will talk to you again. And if you come out to LA, we'll get Hurwitz to buy us a drink.
It's on him. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Ethan. It was great talking to you. Ethan Van